So welcome everyone. This is number 3 session in the series of online sessions where we're looking at the role of systems leadership and embodiment and transformation as a way, or one of the ways towards sustainable future and a more just future in the world. I'm delighted to have Jane and Anna and May from Leadership Coefficient come in and talk about systems leadership more broadly. And really, they've been really good partners in some of the thinking development that we've been doing over the last, it might be a year almost, Jane,
almost.
Almost. So yeah, they've been part of kind of helping us shape what multi-stakeholder collaboration for systems change looks like in the food and agricultural commodities space, and have been working on systems leadership across the world for a while. So delighted to have you, and thank you for giving us your time for free today.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. We're delighted to be a part of this community in our small way, and it's wonderful to be here for this session. So as Lisa has said, you know, we're actually a consultancy in systems leadership. That's where we focus. Our world has become so complex that leading systems change, as you all are charged with, has become a task that, you know, needs more than one head. It's too complex for one smart leader to have all the answers, and the answers lie actually in the collective intelligence that's networked across the systems that you're working in. And our work is helping leaders to really harness that collective intelligence, to lead with systems awareness. And it's a very different leadership perspective than the traditional one. And that's what we're going to explore today. And we hope to really spark your curiosity about systems leadership. We know you're all already leading very complex projects in multi-stakeholder systems. And hopefully have you have some self-inquiry around how you're doing as a systems leader, and acquire a couple of new capabilities during this session as well, albeit very brief session. And I do want to just once again introduce our team. So we have Anna Leong from Singapore, who's co-leading with us, and also May Tak Wong from Malaysia. Leadership Coefficient is across Asia Pacific and in New Zealand as well. If you include New Zealand in the Asia Pacific, I'm in Australia. And we also have quite a broad presence in Europe, both Eastern and Western Europe. So yeah, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So have your phone ready if you can, if you're logged in on your laptop, because we're going to go to Mentimeter at one point. And we're going to use the chat. Maytuk's very kindly offered to moderate the chat for us, which will be helpful. And we're keen to have your questions and comments as we go. And we'll pause for that as well. And we'll have a Q&A at the end too, if there's time. So let's dive into the agenda for today. Anna, I think you're going to share your screen with the slides, right?
Let me share the screen now. And we are moving on from this being the third session. To quickly recap, we learned from Tupton about the power of mindfulness and stillness and how that brings clarity. And if we are being mindful, we will have better control, and we will then be able to find ways to transform ourselves and the system that we want to have an impact on. And in the second session, we learned from Stacy about embodiment and how we are somatically shaped by our experiences. So we do have our habitual responses, and we need to be then aware of them so that we will be more purposeful in our engagement and practice our leadership to achieve the outcomes we want. So today, what we will be covering with you is about systems leadership. So it nicely, we want our focus today is help you gain perspectives on systems intelligence, and this sits on top of the emotional intelligence. We believe it is the next leadership essential. And in order to do this, we need to understand what is systems. What does systems leadership in action look like? How do we get it to happen? And it will sit on the shoulders of what Tupton has said, that you need to be mindful and present, and the body embodiment is a way of helping us to be mindful and present, and through that assess the natural intelligence of the whole. So and more importantly, we want you to bring how will you bring back this learning to your work so that you can get immediate impact. It is actually a mindset shift when we are able to ground ourselves in our head, heart, and gut. So before we move on to this, we would like to get you all to come together and go to your Mentimeter to explore some these questions together. So could you pick up your mobile, key in the code, go into www.menti.com, enter the code 430516, and we will be asking you 2 questions. And the first question is, what do you understand by systems leadership? So I will stop sharing here, and Matthias will be able to share his screen so that we can see your responses coming in. Good, holistic, because we know that everything has an impact on everything that we do has an impact. Being emotionally intelligent, and leaders that will help us with systems transformation, leading the whole, relationships and pieces within the system, leadership capable of managing all the moving pieces and different components at multiple levels, which I believe you all are doing. They are multi-stakeholders, and the future keeps changing. We are not sure.
And I love this about everything is interconnected. That is just so critical. So love that we see that, because of course that's the ripple effect that we experience in systems leadership.
The other thing is embracing complexity. I love the word embracing, because it will come. Complexity is definitely here. We cannot shy away from it.
Uncertainty is a good one, because in systems leadership, we're always dancing with emergence and change. So we're kind of leading in the unknown. So that's a lovely one as well.
Okay. So the next question that we want to ask you on the Mentimeter is, how is systems leadership relevant in our virus VUCA world? We all know what VUCA is, right? Volatile, uncertain, chaos, and the
complex
virus.
And ambiguous.
Complex and ambiguous, thank you.
And chaotic at the moment.
Yeah, and we added the virus. We've always known the world to be VUCA, and now it is.
Now we have the virus as well, just to add another layer of VUCA to our world.
So, how is system VUCA meaning?
Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous is. Thanks, Lisa, for asking about that. I'll get Maytak to type that in. It's actually a military term originally, but has started to be used in the business world. There's a Harvard Business Review article on this from a few years back now. So we're living in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And that's where this VUCA comes from.
Yes.
Yeah, agility and rapid change and the complexity of it, exactly. Finding solutions.
Mm-hmm. So that will be ambiguous means complexity, true. Make sure the most vulnerable groups won't be always sacrificed when the system is disrupted and transforming. Very, very true. Because we need to be aware of all the stakeholders. And usually it is the last cog or the last mile that we falter. We need leaders able to lead in a complex VUCA world, embrace and navigate this complexity. True.
Once again, a great word, embrace. Yeah. Yes, trust, inclusiveness, challenging the status quo. Yeah, absolutely great.
I love it. Only way through is together, because we no one leader has all the answers. We need to do it together.
And I saw on the earlier slide, we had the word entanglement, the age of entanglement, which picks up on that beautifully as well. Bringing all the different parts together, integrating solutions. Yeah, and I love this inspiration too. It's and we're certainly dealing with rapid change, and we see it already in the world we're in at the moment is absolutely in that situation.
Caring, putting well-being above efficiency. That is so true. We've been trained to think of being efficient all the time, not realizing whether are we taking good care of ourselves and the earth. Go beyond a mechanical and dualist approach. So we have got quite a few 13.
Great concepts here, great ideas. Yeah.
Love it. Stop hiding in your silo.
We often say to, the people we're working with, we're shifting you from silo thinking to systems thinking, and juxtaposing those two.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So true.
Okay, well, so let's, you could save those for us, Matthias, maybe, so that we can send them in the output afterwards for people to see. So there are obviously clear implications for our leadership when we think about this VUCA world that we're in. And it really boils down to, well, we boil it down to 3 key issues. And that is that, really in this complex world, it's no longer possible for one person to actually have all the answers. And so the answers to complex problems are kind of nested in the networks of intelligence that live around and across the organizations that we're working with. And I know that you know this already as systems leaders. The other thing that's important is systems leadership really needs us to slow down and discern and watch what's unfolding. So we need to be mindful, present, self-aware in order to have the systems perspective. We kind of got to move from a kind of distracted, busy place to one that's really looking at what are all the moving parts that you've referred to, what's happening in the system, what are the patterns, and what can that tell us, and what are the interventions then as leaders that we need to make. So this links beautifully to Tubton's session at the beginning when he talked about the power of mindfulness and how that helps us to arrive at clarity. The other thing is that we're always dealing with change. Systems leadership is about sustainability. And we saw a lot of words like transformation that you put into the Mentimeter. And that means that really the kind of what we know already and the mental models that we have today may not be enough to cut it for what's coming. And we kind of need to be able to shift out of that knowing everything, feeling that we tend to have, into actually not knowing and being okay with not knowing, and being, and what's this word again, embracing uncertainty, in order to be able to actually pick up and see what the subtle signals of change are and to lead from there. So those are some of the key implications that we see for leadership in this complex world, and how systems leadership is so important. So let's have a look at what we really mean by systems leadership.
Yes.
Anna, do you want to pick up there?
Yep. So when we talk about systems leadership, a key principle of it is that you are leading from the whole rather than from the rock. The key principle you can see in this slide is core for systems leadership. As we all said, the world is too complex for one smart leader to have all the answers. And so solutions also can be found in the complex, solutions to complex problems can be found in the networks of intelligence living within and across organization. So the leadership talent that we are looking at today is how do you tap into that collective intelligence to inform the direction and decision making. So on this slide, on the right-hand side, you see what we call the hero, the heroic leader in command and control, giving directions and leading the people forward. The people are connected a little bit to each other. You can see they are very much in a silo. And all the attention is then looking up to the leader for the directions. And the expectation is that the leader has all the answers. We contrast that with the diagram on the left, where the leader is in service of the team. He is plugged into the network with his with the people that he or she leads, and is conscious that whatever he or she does not do has an impact. And the leader is then able to lead from there. One is that they need to know what are the talents that is residing within the team and that are on board, and then together they can leverage them to achieve the shared goals. And key to this is also being aware of the system, the team dynamics, the relationships between each other. So the leader will then be able to do the necessary intervention to keep the system healthy and performing. The heroic, as we all know now, the heroic models are now being replaced by flatter, more organic, agile models that tap into the systemic intelligence and to meet the demands of complexity in leading transformation across multi-stakeholder systems. So, so we would like you to, this slide in a way does not suggest that we do away with organization charts. The leader is still expected to make the decision, except that it is a mindset shift. He does not know all the answers, and he will need to depend on input from the others. So we can see that it is then a lead and follow and lead mindset that draws on the different talents of the collective. So and the other thing is that we are not implying consensus making also. So it is not getting everybody's input, but getting the key people with the right expertise, the input, and together making the right decision moving forward. Any other things, Jane, you want to add on this?
Well, I think what I wanted to say actually is great is that, yeah, this is not a consensus decision-making model. This is about agility. It's fast. It's like drawing on all the insight and talents of all the different elements in the system as a leader and informing yourself there in order to point direction and take the system forwards. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic at the moment, and I've been observing as everybody has, the different leadership models around the world as countries and governments organize themselves around this pandemic. And I would notice that this systems leadership model on the left, where country leaders have drawn on all the expertise of the many different people that need to advise regarding public health and responses to a public health crisis, versus, say, a heroic model of leadership on the right. And I mean, you can all think for yourselves which leaders around the world have adopted which styles. And my assessment at the moment is that the leaders that have been more on the left on this systems leadership model have generally been more successful in their countries around handling the pandemic. So I think that's been quite an interesting thing to observe as we go through the middle of this crisis. So the other principle we wanted to quickly talk to you about is around systems leadership, is the fact that we're always leading change and emergence in systems. So the future is unfolding moment by moment, even as we all sit here. And so nothing is staying the same for very long. So in this model, what we're showing you is the gold vertical line, if you like, that could be your 2024 plan. And the goal is to arrive at the little gold figure at the top of the arrow. But what actually happens in the time between now and 2024 is that the world unfolds very differently from what we're expecting. It unfolds much more like the green squiggly line. And we really, in 2024, need to arrive where the little green figure is. If we stick rigidly to the plan and we arrive where the gold figure is, we're going to have a very painful system adjustment to deal with, which is the little explosion there on the slide. So what this is really saying is, we're really, in systems leadership, we're always reading the subtle signals of change. We're always noticing what's emerging and what's happening. And it's kind of like a dance, by the way, so complex that, once again, to say it takes more than one mind to be able to do it. And, it can be quite deceptive because you can sort of feel like you're on track, like halfway up this gold vertical line, it looks like we're really on plan. And then all of a sudden, whoa, something happens and it takes us away. So the art of systems leadership is also about being able to be in harmony with what's unfolding in the broad environment. This is broad systems awareness. And to arrive at the green figure in 2024 and avoid these painful system adjustments. We're not saying throw away your strategic plans. We know you have to have a plan. I'm sure there are plenty of plans in the United Nations. It's the art of leading and fine-tuning and adjusting around that plan. So that's the other aspect of systems leadership. And the word transformation came up many times in the Mentimeter. You're leading transformational change. It's about sustainability, and everything is changing all the time. And that's the emergence that we're dealing with in systems leadership. So could we have the next slide, please, Anna? Because I just want to also, we have this professor in Australia, and I love this comment. I just read it in the newspapers a few months back. There's no manual for how to lead in this pandemic. I thought it was a perfect example of being on this green squiggly line. I think he said this back in March, April, when we were all first needing to address the pandemic. And he has really, exemplified what we're talking about here with this green squiggly line. The whole world is on this green squiggly line at the moment. Trying to find its way, leading in the unknown with so many variables. So we do need to lead from the emerging future as systems leaders. And what that takes from us is that we need, as we said at the beginning, to be very present and mindful, like linking up with what Tubman says. We need to be listening and paying attention with our whole body mind. So linking to what Stacey has talked about up to now, and we're going to go there a little bit more deeply, and really in touch with our purpose, deeply self-aware in order to read the signals of change and know how to do this. So let's just dive into you know, what a practice of systems leadership looks like.
Yep. So what we have this flock of geese is a good analogy for us, because they know how to do systems leadership perfectly. When they are all flying in formation, they know each other's strengths, and when the top bird is tired, it knows how to go back, and then another one just seamlessly take over. So in this way, they are able to lead and follow and lead. So we would like you to, we'd like to do a little poll now to ask you, what are you seeing in your organization or organizations that you are working with today? Which leadership style do you think is the most prevalent in the leadership culture you are working in generally? So leaders behave primarily as directive hero on the rock leaders. Leaders are system thinkers, tapping into the collective intelligence and practicing lead and follow and lead. Leaders have broad system awareness and apply it to lead from the emerging future. And leaders think systems leadership is about IT. So could we have the poll, and if you could just give us your response. Ooh. Good. Do we have only 7 who have polled? 52% have polled.
Let's hear from a few more people. We'd love to hear what you think.
Yep.
Maybe it's a hard choice.
We also ask you to share with us your thoughts on the chat. You know, how do you how do you relate this to your roles on the 2 principles that we shared with you on systems leadership? One is being part of the whole, and the other one is we are on the green squiggly line. Okay. Well, so it is expected, we sort of expected that 50% of your leaders behave primarily as a directive hero on the rock leaders. And it's good.
That's interesting.
About 40% are both systems thinkers and already are applying the broad system awareness. So 19%. And we do have still 13% of leaders thinking that it is about IT.
That's interesting. That's actually, that's pretty good result. There's more systems thinking going on in the UNDP than in many organizations that we work with. So that's great. Thank you for that. Yeah, please, you know, if you've got a question or a comment in the chat about what we've talked about so far, just pop it in. Maytak will alert us and we can comment. In the meantime, let's move on to talk a little bit then about some principles of systems leadership.
So what do we mean? What do we mean by systems? By systems, we mean some key points about systems is that we need to be aware that we are all part of a larger whole system, and therefore our actions as a leader or as a member of a team will affect everything else. And the other thing is that whether we are doing things or not doing things, we do have an impact all the time. And the other key thing is that we need to be responsible for what we co-create. By this, we mean is that even if you are sitting quietly in a corner and not listening to what is happening, you are actually having an impact on the team. And therefore, you need to be responsible for whatever action, because we need for systems awareness, there is a need to be aware that they are co-creating things all the time. So when we understand these principles, it is no longer possible for a leader or for anyone to say is the trouble with this team is, that we always hear sometimes. But we need to hear that the trouble with this team is we. That means point the finger back at ourselves and understand how were we responsible for what is happening. Have we talk a lot about unintended consequences. Are we aware of the unintended consequences? And you can see in the popular culture also about collateral damage. So being system, that is really being part of systems awareness.
This is one of the hardest things, by the way, for leaders to get their heads around, because they so often say, oh, the trouble with the team is they. And it's like whatever's happening in the team or the system, as the leader, even if you're the leader at the top of the tree, you're actually a part of that co-creation. So it's a really critical mindset shift.
And why is it critical? Because systems are always in a complex dance of flux, change, and emergence, especially human systems, which are known as human systems are complex adaptive systems, and the interaction of the different parts will result in an emergence. It is a different quantity that is not present in the individual parts. So you can see here when we talk about emergence, we give you examples like H2O, water, hydrogen and oxygen comes together to create water. Music is the space, music is created with the space between the notes, and art is actually from the dots of paint on a page. So in a human system, what emerged is the culture. That is the culture, and our task as a leader is to be able to be aware of all these things that's happening and do the correct intervention to keep the human system healthy and performing.
So the real challenge here as a leader is to have what we've talked about at the beginning of this session, this systems intelligence. And this is what we see as a new layer over the top of emotional intelligence, because if we're going to lead from the emergence, then we actually need to be able to read the system, see the system, and read the dynamics of the system and understand what is happening before we can even figure out what is the leadership intervention that we need to make. So we want to talk a little bit also then about how do you actually develop this systems intelligence. So it's actually, systems theory, of course, began years and years ago with awareness of dynamics in families. But any two or more people in a relationship create a system. And this is a little bit of jargon that we use. We call that the third entity. So for example, there's Anna, who works with me all the time, and May Tuck, and then there's me. And so there are the three of us, and then together we create a third entity, which is the relationship that we've co-created together. And we're all co-responsible for that third entity. And if we notice that it's vibrant and exciting, we can say, oh wow, our relationship is going really great. It's really exciting. Or we might notice it's a bit sluggish and slumpy, and rather than pointing to one another individually, we go, so what's going on in our system? What do we need to do to have that be a little bit less sluggish? So this is the art, to actually be noticing what is being created in the system. What is that third entity like? So that I know now what I need to do as a systems leader to take it forward. And in a way, this third entity, if you could imagine it, it's almost like if it could speak, it could tell us what's going on in the system. Imagine if it had a voice. It could actually say, oh, this system is, in so much pain, or it needs this, or it needs that. And when we have systems intelligence, we can start to discern what that voice might be saying. And when we have that information, this is the emergence, of course, that Anna just spoke about, we begin to have vital information that tells us what we need to do to take the system forward in a healthy way. So this is perhaps a complex concept, but to us, it's at the heart of systems leadership, being able to hear and listen to the voice of the system and inform yourself from there. Can I have the next slide? Yeah. So we actually, we use the metaphor of the team soup to help understand this concept of the third entity. It's a little, if you imagine a team that you're a part of, and I'm sure you're part of many different teams or leading a team, it's as though every individual is putting in their ingredients, popping in their ingredients, and you've got a pot of soup that you're making that's in the center of your circle together. And the emergence from your system is that soup. Everybody's got their own different talents, strengths, contributions, ideas, behaviors, whatever it might be, and they're being popped into the soup. And your culture or your third entity or your emergence is the soup that you've made. So we thought it might be fun just to play with this metaphor a little bit. And I want you to just pause and think about a team that you're in. You may be leading it. You may be maybe a peer team that you're a part of. And just think for a moment. So what's the soup like that this team makes? Is it smooth or lumpy? Is it hot or cold? Is it spicy or bland or whatever? And if you've got a notebook or a journal, maybe make some notes for yourself and pop your thoughts into the chat. Let's hear a little bit about some of the soups that you're a part of in your work. Now let's hear from you. What's the team soup like in a team that you're in?
Sorry.
Thoughts? Here's one. Relational, supportive, and a bit bumpy. Thank you, Lisa. Bumpy soup. Other thoughts? What's your team soup like? I know that the team soup for our leadership coefficient system changes all the time. Our team soup's been a bit quiet lately. I think all the partners around the world are extremely busy. Yeah, the thickness varies with the collective mood, indeed. Yeah. Another question is, are you all in the team making the same soup? Are you working to the same recipe? Any other thoughts? That's interesting, Lisa. And yeah, thanks, Baitak. If anybody's got a question or a comment at this point, we'd love to hear from you as well. What are you aware of with your team soup? Okay, Kathleen, good one. Yeah, we're aware it's not quite right yet. How are we going to have it taste better? That's a good one, Kathleen.
Awareness is the first step.
Yeah. Love to hear from you if you've got a question or a comment. Any other thoughts on your team soups? How easy or difficult is it for you to listen to the voice of the system, do you think? Curious about that.
Mm.
I think we first need to know it's there.
Yes. Can you say more about that, Simon?
I think when we're, well, particularly when we're on these mosaics on the screen in front of us, you're always thinking about, as the facilitator or even as just a participant, thinking about how the share of voices around the screen. But of course, you don't have the system there as a speaker, as a share of voice. And in fact, one brilliant idea, which I've only tried once, was to have the subject of your talk, so essentially the thing you're talking about, the system you might be describing, as another tile on the mosaic, another Zoom screen. And this was a chap who was working for a Catholic Relief Services in agriculture, and he would always set up an iPhone in the middle of the field and have that as one of the Zoom participants. So they always remembered what they were talking about. So maybe that's how you let the third entity in to things like this. You have it represented as a Zoom window or as a participant in a real life meeting, just to remind people that that voice is there.
Yep.
Yes, and that it holds a lot of very valuable information if we can just slow down enough to tap into it. That's a really great idea. And yeah, we've done it with, you know, like a chair in the center of the room. And different people can go and sit in that chair and say what they think actually the voice of the system wants to say right now. And then that's quite an art, because, you know, we often go back to I, and we can end up sitting in that chair, and really what we're putting forward is our own point of view. So it's like to be able to stretch yourself out of that and hear the voice of the system is you know, it's a real art. Yeah. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Chameleonic. Yeah, it changes all the time. That's so true. Yeah, good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, changes color too by the sound of that word. Yeah. Okay, so well done. You've all begun to do a little bit of an exercise in having systems intelligence. This is really a toe in the water today of systems leadership, but that's just a little moment. And maybe you'd like to take that reflection away with you and think about the team soups that you're a part of as you lead after this session. We want to also make sure we have time to talk a little bit about embodiment and how embodiment really supports and is important in systems intelligence. And we're really building on the work that Stacey's done with you. So yeah, let's have a look at this.
Yep, we are actually, Leadership Coefficient is very proud to be part of this Center for Creative Leadership Research back in 2013 that observed the importance of working with the whole body as the next wave in leadership development. So it's talking about 2013, and now in 2020, that's 7 years ago. And the key thing, he said, the implication for leadership development is that we want to help our adults develop and evolve. So embodiment is therefore a very important part of it. How do we help them assess their body? So to do that, we believe that there is, we're now going into an activity, and there are 9 key characteristics that we all possess in greater or lesser degree, and usually with one being our most usual style or our personal strength. So we want you to think about, we will be reading statements to you, and we want you to think about them. Which statement most closely describe you as we read them? as we go through this, we ask you to be very present and aware, and possibly jot some notes in your journal. 1, I am analytical, detailed, logical, and results focused with high standards of perfection.
I build relationships and connect people, making it fun with positive, sparkling energy.
I energize and inspire people, mobilizing and enrolling them into a project or cause for change.
I design and validate through calm, systematic thinking to ensure technical feasibility.
I explore and think through from all angles to gain clarity and overview. I like explaining it in detail.
I sense the vision of what's coming with urgency, which sometimes stirs the pot and creates turbulence.
I have creative and practical ideas and see opportunities and possibilities for the new all the time.
I drive and mobilize the team for action, execution, and results with strength and confidence.
I value harmony and integration, making sure everyone's voice is heard and we all move forward together. So we ask you to write down which of these characteristics is most like you in a collaboration and identify your top 2. Put a note on it. Which are your top 2? Okay, you got it? So let's go. What does all these mean? So who has 2, 4, and 8? If you have 2, 4, 8, we would most likely identify you as having a strong preference in gut intelligence, the place of inner knowing, instinct, and will to act. Who has 3, 6, 9? If you have 3, 6, 9, we would identify you as someone with a preference in heart intelligence, who senses and reads human emotions and dynamics. And the last, the 1, 5, and 7. For those with 1, 5, 7, we would identify you as someone who has a strong preference in your head for cognitive thinking, logic, and analysis. So knowing your preferences brings increased awareness of who you are and whether your preferences are in the head, heart, or gut is important, because that, and at the same time, we need to integrate the head, heart, and gut to enable us to be agile, organic, and coherent. Through that, we can assess our full potential and we can be aligned and balanced. So we will talk more about this later.
It's also important to know who else, to know the others that you're working with. So if you're working in a collective, in a team, in a system, it's awareness of yourself and your energies and your preferences, and of course, awareness of the others. Who are we all? What do we all bring? What are the different contributions that we make? And who are we as a whole system?
Yep. So for example, myself, my major number is 3 and 6. So I usually go to, I can be very passionate about a cause for change. And I always do it with an urgency. And then I will be very happy to have Maytak, who has a 5 and a 4 to bring me to bring me back in and to
calm you down and bring some systematic thinking into the business, into this process.
And with Jane,
did we want to do a poll right now, Anna? Was that the idea? Just curious, if you can think which is your top most. We asked you to identify your top 2. If you can pick one of those, we're curious to see what's the distribution across this group today for these dimensions. This is kind of a little lens on our system in this moment today. So just pick which one it was that you wrote down or that you think is most like you. And just ever so fast, pop it in. Let's just see what this system today looks like.
yeah, we all know that we all have all 9, and it is about a preference where when our preference to move in a certain way. And we also note that this is just a demonstration. We need to actually do the body profiling to get the true answer.
We're going to talk in a moment more about how we do this, how we determine this body intelligence with people. So do we have an answer on the poll?
Oh, we have 13 of 18. A few
Okay,
more.
let's just see what's the distribution. Yep. Oh, we have a lot of
1
analytical, detailed, logical, results-focused people, and lots of relationship people, and then some process and system and exploring thinkers. Okay. Well, that's interesting, just to look at this system. We'll talk more about it in a moment, but I can see straight away that if we were a group with a piece of work that we needed to go and do directly after this session, we'd be thinking to ourselves, oh, we need to call in a bit of these other energies where we have gaps, and we need to really leverage what we have here. So why don't we have a look at a little bit more about how we do that. It's through a system that we call Embodied Leadership Strengths Profile, or ELSP.
Okay, it's just this explanation then, Jane.
Yes.
Get the poll off.
Yeah, I'm just jumping ahead because I'm aware of the time. So Stacey referred to this in your last session, that we're very familiar with the brain in our head, but we actually have 3 intelligence centers in our body. These days, the cardiologists actually talk about the little brain in the heart. There's quite a complex neuronal system in the heart. It actually produces hormones that previously we thought were only produced in the brain, like serotonin and dopamine and ANF and so on. And anybody who's ever, been preparing for an exam, which is probably everybody on this call, knows how our emotions can really affect our gut. So there's a that we have a lot of neurons in the whole torso area. So whereas we previously kind of thought or imagined, it was previously thought or imagined that all the action took place in the head, what we know now is that about 80% of the messages are actually going from the body to the brain, letting it know what's going on. So things are sensed or felt or known in the chest and gut area and passed up to the brain for information. These 3 intelligence areas in the body are all connected by a great big nerve called the vagus nerve that goes through all the way. And the interesting thing is that our body intelligence is actually extremely fast. It's faster than the head. So when we can start to get in touch with the information that's residing here in our chest area and in our gut area, this one we've been trained to death in it. We know how to use this one. We have much more capacity. So just if we could go to the next slide, Anna. We do associate these 3 brains with very particular modalities, and we touched on that just now when we debriefed the exercise about which of these is most like me. So in the head brain, yeah, that's really about cognitive capability, logic, analysis, and thinking. The dimensions in the chest area, people with these dimensions are much more in touch with reading human dynamics, and they are much more sensors rather than thinkers. So often people with a lot of intelligence in the heart, actually like Anna does, she mentioned she has 3 and 6 in her case, you know, they really have a good sense of what's going on. They might not have all the perfect words to put around it, but they have a lot of information from sensing. And then the gut brain, which has this strong instinctual action orientation. And the art of embodied leadership is to actually be able to pull these together in a coherent way so that you are actually having the benefit of all of these areas to as additional resources, if you like, in this complex world to help with insight, clarity, decisions, and also your systemic intelligence. So let's talk a little bit more, because that was a bit mysterious, talking about these centers, how we actually help leaders to get in touch with those intelligence centers. And that is the embodied leadership profiling system.
So Leadership Coefficient has developed this embodied leadership strengths profile. And this is basically, it is a body-based profiling method. We've shown you a picture of how it looks like when we are doing the assessment. And we use the insights from the worlds of somatic psychotherapy and physical therapy. And so it was developed with the insights from this. And then what happens is that the assessment will be done individually, and then the team strengths and challenges will then be visible for every member of the team. So in this way, we are then revealing the human, revealing the system to itself. And if we are able then to leverage, to reveal the system in diagrams, you are then able to leverage the strengths of the whole team. And also just looking at the constellation, you are then able to understand apply the awareness, and therefore collective performance can take place. So this is how we do the profiling method, asking people to focus on a certain part, on one of the power centers. Okay.
So once we know somebody's profile through this body-based system, we can actually, apart from letting somebody know that, you know, around deepening their own self-awareness around their talents and strengths, and getting in touch, if you like, with the intelligence in these different parts of the body, we can also, as Anna just mentioned, start to constellate the team. And we have developed a number of different constellation models. This is just one of them. And this is, again, systems leadership is really, or systems awareness is really about having visibility of the system dynamics. So the constellation models, which, you know, looking at who do we have here in this system? Who are all these people? What are the different talents and contributions that they have, and how can we leverage them together to be more high performing, is really, really powerful around systems intelligence and systems leadership. So how do we actually balance ourselves, and how can we work together more effectively, knowing one another, if you like, from this body essence level? Here's another model, and this talks a little bit about the dynamics that come to play with these different intelligence centers. So we know, for example, on the horizontals in this model, that people with preferences in the head are really great at developing strategy. people with preferences in the chest area are, and they're the ones, if you remember, that we talked about sensing dynamics, are great at leading transformation. And people with preferences in the gut or torso area are really good at operationalizing and making things strong and solid. And on these verticals, we also know that the different energies and in these different parts of the body have different modalities as well. So in the light green here, we know that on that particular vertical, people with these preferences are really great, are really future oriented in their thinking, the 2, 6, 7 on this model. They are anticipators. They're looking to the future, they're picking up from the impulse and they're running with that. So they're great for talking about, well, the emerging future, for example, where they think it's going and coming up with innovation around that. People with the 1, 3, 8 line, they are great mobilizers for action. They will drive the system to get results. And people on this pink line have much more of a holding energy around them, bringing clarity and calm, thinking through, systematic thinking, and really making sure that we dot all the I's and cross the T's before we put a plan into action. So this is just another example of how we reveal the system to itself, if you like. If we let the system see itself and begin to see, hey, these are the dynamics that we have, these are the talents that we have, this is where we might have a gap, this is where we might be overweight, and let's make sure that we work with this system in the most productive way, knowing what we know about these dynamics. And we have, as an example, one way we can model this particular coherence model. This is actually the strengths wheel for our own company's global partner team. So we have partners across the world, and we ran this model not long ago. And, you know, I can look at that in an instant. I can see with the light green, which is the anticipating line, that we are, you know, very much looking to the future and innovating around that and building a lot of relationships. You know, that's that 2, 6, 7. And actually, I think our 6, which is a visionary element, is actually off the chart. If I was to draw it on a piece of paper, it would go beyond what the software will draw for us. And then in the teal blue, you know, we're drivers. We're pretty balanced around mobilizing and driving for results. And I notice just looking at that straight away, I can see, oh, our team, you know, we're a little bit light on with this 4-5 capability, which is the systematic thinking through. So we have an awareness around that. We're very grateful we've got Maytak in the team because she brings it. I bring some of it as well. And so we know, oh, we need to watch ourselves there because, you know, we might just get going and be really not thinking things through properly. We could fall on our face. So that's a very fast example of how we get visibility of the system through these models and through in an embodied way. And we find that the profiling through the body, working with a team, is very fast adopted. Much faster than, say, a paper-based psychological assessment, because the team learns to recognize one another, if I can put it in slightly strange language, at a body essence level. So we all very quickly begin to recognize, because these different dimensions actually show in how we hold ourselves, how we shape ourselves, to use Stacey's language, the kinds of facial expressions we use, the way we move our heads and so on. So we begin to recognize one another very quickly, much more quickly than if I have to read, say, a 50-page Myers-Briggs report about each member of the team. So this is kind of working with the system in the moment. Yes.
Sorry to interject. I just saw a chat from Lisa asking if we can speak to how we can develop and grow into the areas and numbers that are not our current preferences. We can develop them all. And well, first of all, I want to say that in this is sort of a collective leadership model.
And so what we advocate is that we become aware of one another's different strengths and talents in a collective or a system, and we each play to our strengths, because it can be very draining and exhausting trying to do things that are not our greatest talent. And we can do all 9. And if I need to, I can go to one of these strengths that is not my preference. If I need to, I can lead from there. And I'll talk about that for a moment to answer Lisa's question. Ideally, what we will do is, I know, for example, that I'm very light on with the validator strength. And I know that Maytak has that in spades. So if we need validator in something that we're doing in our system, we'll call on Maytak. It's going to be a lot more productive to use her talent than for me to try and bring mine in there. So that's the first thing. So this is very much a strengths-based model, which I'm sure you all understand the power of that. How do we develop our strengths? We do it by helping leaders to really get in touch with the different power centers in the body that bring these different talents. Each of these 9 dimensions is associated with a particular power center in the body. They're actually related to the chakras, which of course are as old as the hills. So when we know where that power resides in the body, for example, the validator 4, to use that example, for me, if I want to access that, I know that it resides in the lower abdomen. So I can be trained or supported or helped or coached to really get my attention there, to focus there, and to bring the power of that particular part of the body into play to allow me to have more of that energy and capability. So this is how we do it. We do it through coaching, embodied coaching, accessing different parts of the body, and there are other ways as well. We actually have worked with a yoga master to identify that you can actually, there are yoga postures that correlate to these power centers as well. So we can actually work with yoga postures in an extremely mindful and meditative way to access different power centers and bring in the strength and power of those qualities to help us with the situation we may be addressing. So I can see, I can't read all the questions because I'm too busy talking, but Maytak, I can see it's a few questions are popping here. So
yes. And somebody put up a hand, a Suma put up a hand. I don't know whether that is can we hold that question until we go into the Q&A?
Well, yeah, what's in the chat, Nate? Maybe we've got time to answer a couple now, and we will have a Q&A at the end as well. We're running out of time. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's hear from the person with the hand up, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Thank you, Jane, for this presentation. Can you clarify what different sizes of the pies mean and how they correlate with each other?
Yeah, this is, look, we've built software around this. As you can see, this has come out of software. So that it's actually a very complicated mathematical answer to tell you that, which I don't think I can go into it right now. But you can see the outer circle is the thick gray line, and there's a thicker gray line around the halfway through the circle. And that indicates that if the team was perfectly balanced at 100%, okay, on each of these dimensions, the 9 dimensions, they would all sit right on that gray line, roughly where the 3 and the 8 on this model are just a little bit short of that middle gray line. So that indicates 100% balance around the system. So it's a mathematical distribution basically. And in this system, we're less, we have less at the 4-5 and a lot more at the 6-2. So that's how it's balanced around the system. I hope that answers the question well enough for you.
Jane, we actually have 2 questions, another 2 questions, one from Pascal and the other one from Simon. I'm just wondering in terms of time.
Well, how about we have those in the Q&A? Let's just show the last. There's just one more slide we wanted to show you first, and then then we're going to the Q&A.
So we're talking about with the ELSP, we are able to build on the vertical development versus a horizontal development. Horizontal development in most cases means continuing to add more skills and will not cut in the new challenges of today's world. Eventually, it does not work as a person's capacity to assimilate more information is reached. So in vertical development, what we see, as you can see in the diagram, it is about growing our mind, growing a bigger mind and having a bigger cup, or in upgrading to a bigger system. So it is not just adding features and functions, but being able to take in more. And that ability to take in more is through our body intelligence, because we do know, as what Jane explained, that our body intelligence is faster than the head. And in order to do that, we need to have a whole body awareness and insight, and therefore build the coherence as we had shown in the diagrams. So we also, I think the human being also tends to think that we are operating at higher levels than we actually are. So, and from the work we do, we notice that we have not really developed these embodied capacities yet. So, so this is the work that, very exciting work that we are doing in bringing.
I know that Stacey also, you know, I think it was pretty groundbreaking information that she probably brought with her work on embodiment as well. It's new for many people, and takes a little bit of time to kind of get your head or your body around it. I don't know how to use that word, but what we work with is coherent, you know, integration of these head, heart, gut intelligence centers to happen at an individual level, then at a team or system level, and, you know, even more within a team, and then broadly across an organization or across multiple organizations. So that's the goal. It's a pretty challenging goal, but when you can get that coherence, you have everybody really able to harness their strengths towards solving, you know, the complexity that we're all dealing with. So we've got a few minutes for questions. Maytak, what's standing out there, or does somebody want to ask something? What we do want to make sure we've got time for a brief reflection at the end for you to make some notes on what you're going to take forward.
Yeah, are you able to refer to the chat, or would you like me to read it out for you? There are two that was posted, one from Pascal and the other one from Simon.
Please read it. Yeah, that'd be great. I haven't got the chat up in front of me.
So from Pascal, what is the system? What is the system? Is not a team, but a group of stakeholders that have not agreed to work together to improve the system. That was the question. How does your model apply? So
that's a very challenging situation, and I know it's one that you're in many times. I mean, it would be, the goal would be to have, you know, without agreement that we're working together, you're kind of very low on system, you know, you're back in that silo area. So it would be too early to be doing this modeling. The first step, obviously, is how, you know, can we agree that we are going to work together? I'm curious with your question, Pascal, does that happen a lot? I mean, you really are kind of wanting to lead together but not agreeing that you are. Is that quite common in the environment you're in?
So Jane, I mean, I was thinking, for instance, about food systems.
Yeah.
Which is something we're looking at, or agricultural commodity systems. I mean, this is not a team. It's not that have decided to work together for the greater good of the system. It's it's a bunch of stakeholders which have their own interests. So
Yes.
I'm wondering, I mean, it seems that your model really applies to teams, but I don't know to what extent it applies to, you know, a bunch of stakeholders in a system that are not a team.
Yeah, it really, it can work it works cross-organizationally, of course, but for me, the overarching need for systems leadership or collective leadership to be able to happen is that all the stakeholders have a shared purpose, that they've got an agreed shared purpose. And without a shared purpose, I don't really think collective leadership is possible. You know, so that would be the goal, to try and get to that first. And from there, you can begin to model around how can we each, you know, contribute now to achieving this shared purpose. But that would have to be step one. Extremely challenging, obviously. I'm very aware of it, that you've got many different conflicting interests in something like a food system, and that's the challenge.
Thank you.
So the other question from Simon is there a risk? It's a zero-sum game, right? And so as you boost one power center, another declines.
Yeah, actually, I really want to emphasize that we really have all 9 of these.
Yes.
We know from doing the profiling that people always have a distinct preference in 3 or 4, and we're capable in all. So no, I don't think that that would happen. I know that situationally, I can go to any of these and pull on them when I need them. And that doesn't take away my strength. So I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it is more about making it bigger, increasing your capacity. So it is not a zero-sum game. It is really putting a bigger cup, making a bigger cup, and very clear that we all have all 9, and whether are we aware of all 9. And once we are aware and we need to step into it, we are able to step into it.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I can't really imagine, if you're head-based, that you're going to become less brainy if you decide to try and focus more on gut and heart. So that's good.
No, you're just adding to your resources.
Mm.
So I know some people have got to leave, but if you can stay to kind of lock in the learning and give you a moment where you can think about, how could I start applying some of these concepts straight away in my work to make a difference? We invite you to spend a moment just reflecting on these questions and maybe make a few notes in your journal. You know, what is a key insight that you have received today? One thing maybe. And what is one action of systems leadership that you'll take to make an immediate impact in a collaboration that you're a part of? And what else do you need to develop yourself further as a systems leader? And if you've got a thought or an action or an insight that you'd like to share in the chat, just pop it in as well. But first, make those notes in your journal. We want you to have that as a real takeaway.
Any thoughts, Metak, that you can read out?
One from Kathleen. So thank you for your good work in the world. I'm going to play, and I love to know that you're going to play with many of the concepts. And yeah, please do not hesitate to reach out to us even as you experiment with it. Yeah, listening to the system for what it's saying. Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
Very cool. People are taking away some things to go and do and talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, how prevalent the hero leader is. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Gut and heart intelligence in your team, Simon. Good. Yeah. 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 The third entity. Let's listen to what it has to say. Cool. Well, this has really just been a toe in the water on a huge topic of systems leadership. And we certainly hope you've found it informative and interesting. We know it's just the beginning. There's so much more to say and do, and it's a real talent to be able to lead in this way and make these shifts. So thank you very much, everybody. It's been great to have the chance to talk to you about systems leadership, and I know that you're all already fantastic systems leaders, so I hope this has been helpful. We'll hand back to you, Lisa, maybe to close out.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Amazing slides, which I think you saw comments about in the chat as well. So really appreciate you putting them together and that we can share them with folks afterwards. And thank you also for getting up so early in Australia and staying up so late in Asia to be able to fit with kind of the America's time zone. As you say, this is a dip in, and we're hoping very much to bring more of this to our community, I guess, and also to the nature and climate energy team of UNDP. So I hope you can be part of that, and I guess people can reach out to you as they wish based on the contact information that you sent, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll say goodbye. It was great talking to you. Thank you for listening to us, and hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Okay, I think.
Oh, just us left. We'll leave as well. Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Matthias.
you.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Jane.
Matthias. Thank
Sorry?
you for the
Yeah, no, it's okay. Thank you, Matthias. Great to work with you from the other end of the world. Yeah.
yeah.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Hope to see you someday.
Yeah, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Bye.